Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. Tonight, we are joined by Marine Corps veteran, trainer, actor, stuntman, Aaron Williamson. Aaron, we're so excited to have you join us. I heard about your story. It is so fascinating. If you would, for our audience, just give us kind of a brief overview, because what I read, I think the title of what I read was called Homeless to Hollywood. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey. Thank you for having me on. Grew up in Daytona Beach, Florida, kind of broken home, decided to join the Marine Corps out of not much else to do with my life moving forward. And it was the best decision I ever made. I call the Marine Corps my salvation. So it changed my life in an amazing way and created this new path for me to go on. And I learned a lot about myself. And it just brought me into all these new worlds of one, representing this great country that we live in through the Marine Corps, and also just being able to impact so many people's lives by doing purposeful work, which I feel like for me is my life's calling. Purpose to me is everything. So came back from Iraq, fell on my face, was living out of my car, and I call it destiny being in New Orleans, because I met Zac Efron on The Lucky One, where he plays a Marine Iraq veteran. So that was kind of my entrance into film and TV. And then I just grew from there and followed the path that I was creating for myself. And it just led me into acting and stunts. And here I am.
Here you are, and you're sitting here talking to me. I absolutely love it. First of all, let me say thank you for your service. We appreciate so much every single man and woman in this country who serves in one way or another. And I happen to have family who, are former Marines as well. So I really appreciate everything that you've done. You joined the Marines right out of high school. You went through basic training. It sounds like you deployed to Japan, and then you returned back to America and became a Marine Corps body bearer. Tell me about that, because I'm not familiar with that role.
Yeah, I was this really skinny kid growing up, so I fell in love with weights actually in Okinawa, and was cut orders to the Marine Corps Body Bearer section, which is based out of Washington, D.C. at Marine Barracks. A lot of people don't really know about that duty, but it's a small section within the Marine Corps who handles all the funerals for active and reservist service members who get killed in action or who rate to be buried at Arlington. So we're essentially in the Commandant's backyard. It's my most humble duty because it's the last image that a family is going to have of their loved one. So everything that we do strives for perfection, because when you get to the cemetery, you have to be prepared for anything. You don't know what kind of obstacles you're going to face. If you've been to Arlington, you can see the different sections of the cemetery where there's tall gravestones, and so if you have a heavy casket, you have to be prepared to march with it in a way that represents dignity and respect and not lose your bearings. So it's a very humble duty, and it's something that I think about every day. I was fortunate enough to be able to actually be the flag presenter to my grandfather. I was able to do his funeral, so it meant everything to me to do that.
Wow. Well, first of all, I mean, I can't even imagine, doing that for someone and love, someone that's your family and so important to you. But just that duty alone, I mean, that sounds like a pretty heavy role to be involved every single day in funerals, in knowing, the families of our service members who have either been killed in action or died one way or another. Do you feel like that impacted you in some way, having that position?
Yeah, it did. It taught me a lot, because at a young age, I was put in charge of this section, and there's a lot of visibility on it from the highest levels of the Marine Corps all the way down. So it's something I took very seriously, and it made me mature a lot faster.
Yeah.
And actually, when this whole global war on terrorism started, I'm not sure if you remember Michael Spann, but we did his funeral. He was the first person to die over there in Afghanistan. So you know, there's so much meaning behind everything I did as a body bearer. So to be able to teach your Marines the same respect and love that you have for it means everything.
Wow. How long does a person serve in that role, or is there a certain time frame?
It's changing now with different leadership in the Marine Corps, but at the time I was there, because it's such an elite unit, you can basically be extended. So it can be a 4-year, sometimes 6 years. But now I think the rotation is between 2 to 4 years.
Well, I got to tell you, it is, an admirable thing that you did, not only to serve this country, but to play your part in what obviously, as you said yourself, is such an important time, I think, in people's lives, closing the chapter with a loved one and knowing the responsibility that came with that. I'm sure that certainly changed you from the first day to the last day that you did it. You then went on to become personal security for the vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Peter Pace. You went through several months of specialized training for that role. So what type of training does that entail?
It's a lot of weapons training. It's a lot of close-in personal protection training. The weapons training there's so much of it, at night, shooting out of moving vehicles, shooting at moving targets. The driving is, being ambushed, being able to get out of certain situations with evasive maneuvers. So it was a very extensive training, and I mean, honestly, it was a blast doing it because you're involved in doing so much that you would never do otherwise. But it's very, very intense.
I feel like that's when people think about, like anything that you would see in a movie, they're like, that is the epitome of what you're doing, shooting out of a moving vehicle at night, the driving, like all of that. That's what people picture in their heads. I mean, that does sound like a pretty cool thing to do. After that, you took a contract that then sent you to Baghdad. So I imagine that's quite a change from, the previous years that you spent, as a body bearer and then, as personal security. How was that change for you?
It was a big change not being in an active duty role. Obviously, I was still very involved with the military because I lived there for basically 4 years, but it was a mission that I really felt there was some longevity to from a technology perspective, because even today it's a part of the war that you don't ever hear about. But we did a lot of good things. We caught a lot of bad people through identity management. Essentially the biometrics mission over there was what I was a part of. So the first couple of years I was directly with DOD in the base access program. So essentially, if someone's trying to get on a base, it's creating a biometrically enabled smart card for them to have to verify who they are every day. And meanwhile, out in the field of the combat environment, there are forensics teams and latent examiners who are constantly, every day, updating our list of bad guys with fingerprints that they're pulling. So that list is updated, routinely. So if you're a bad guy and you're trying to do stuff and you don't know what we're doing, the next time you try and get on our base, we're going to nab you up.
Wow. Well, that's an important role to play, for sure. So you did all these different things within the military. You spent, I think you said 4 years overseas there in Afghanistan and Iraq before you finally came home. So what was your plan when you returned back? Because I know it's a struggle sometimes for our service members when they come back home and, things are very different than to kind of change everything you've been doing in our military and go back into civilian life.
Yeah, it was a huge adjustment. The plan that I came to New Orleans with was to actually still work with the Marine Corps in another contracting position, but things didn't really work out as planned, and it left me in a place of struggle. So I wasn't sure exactly how to maneuver through that. Was trying to find work. I realized pretty quickly that, like in the military, where when you give your word, it means something, in the civilian world, it means nothing. So that was a hard lesson to learn. And long story short, by learning that lesson, it put me in a spot where I lost everything I had and ended up, living out of my car and was filed for bankruptcy. I'm a statistic. I got divorced while I was over in Iraq, and it wasn't the greatest financially. It was tough, so I lasted as long as I could before I had to throw in the towel and file for bankruptcy. But it was in that time that I really turned to my anchor, which was fitness, to get me through those hard times.
Well, it sounds like you started that, I guess, initially when you were deployed over in Japan, right? You said that's where you kind of started your first, love of weights. How did you kind of get to where you are today? Because, I mean, look, you can just look at you. You're obviously a very in shape guy, and you have taken at least what you started out doing there in Japan in the Marine Corps, and now you've made it your profession.
Yeah, it was, back to the thing I call destiny. I just did what I did and what I love to do, and it opened up the right doors for me. Meeting Zac Efron.
How did that happen, by the way? I mean, we're just like casual, like just I met Zac Efron, but like how does one meet Zac Efron? How does that go down?
Well, so I was training at a 24-hour gym uptown New Orleans, and he had come there with his trainer from LA. A guy named Logan Hood, who was a Navy SEAL. He did all the training for the movie 300. So he was training Zac for that movie to kind of bulk him up a little bit. And when they saw me in the gym with my, I had like a Marine Corps poster up there to say who I am. They were interested in bringing me on set to kind of teach him how to be a Marine, or more like a Marine, how to walk like a Marine, talk like a Marine, certain situations, how a Marine would deal with them. And that was kind of my entrance into it. So from there, him and I just kept working together all the way up just previously to Baywatch. So it was a long relationship we had. Great guy. But yeah, that was the beginning of the whole Hollywood journey.
Well, and from a story that I heard previously, you got a pretty impressive phone call actually in your car shortly thereafter. Is that right?
Yeah, I was eating a meal in my car, and I got that phone call from Sylvester Stallone, and it was a really surreal moment, because in my mind I'm like, is this real? Is this real? Because his assistant had called me and said she was patching him in.
You're like, this is a prank?
Yeah.
Like, did you think that?
Well, I did at first, and then he's got you can't mistake his voice.
That's true. He's a hard one to replicate. That's not like Sacha Baron Cohen doing it. So like, you really know.
Yeah, it was very surreal, because that's the part of the whole piece of the puzzle that a lot of people don't know is when I really got into the beginning phases of training, I was still living in my car. It wasn't until I trained The Rock that I was actually able to get back on my feet, buy a new car, get a place to rent so I can live in. And that was, that was a surreal moment too. I remember The Rock was making fun of my car one day when we finished training, not knowing my situation. And I never had the chance to really tell him about it. But yeah, it was very humble beginnings in the Hollywood realm.
Well, I mean, your story really is it's such a good thing for all of us to keep in mind, because I think, look, you clearly were in the right place at the right time to meet Zac Efron and have this sort of foot in the door, if you will, to this other world that you otherwise probably wouldn't have ever gotten a chance to be a part of. But your humility and your ability to say, look, it's not my time yet. I'm still going to do what I got to do. I'm going to get, I'm going to work hard. I might still not be living exactly how I want to be living, but I know I'll get there. And it sounds like you just kept going in the direction you knew you needed to go. I feel like so often people get very discouraged because they have pitfalls or they have situations where they say, nothing is working. I can't figure out how to get things going the right way. But you just were very persistent, it sounds like, despite being around all these wealthy Hollywood people, you were living out of your car, and you did that for some time.
Yeah, and I attribute that to the Marine Corps mentality, that expeditionary mindset of just being able to drown out all the noise and focus on the things that my gut was telling me I needed to keep doing. And, it's still today, I still abide by that creed. The Marine Corps mentality, that mindset, and just to be able to believe in yourself enough to do anything you set your mind to do.
I love that. I love the whole, idea of all of that, and just keep focused and keep on doing what you need to do to get to where you ultimately want to be. So tell everyone what you're doing right now, because you're doing a whole mix of different things. You're actually acting now. You're doing stunt work. What are you doing now? Like, what's your job? What would you call yourself if someone asked you?
Uh, I would say, well, I'm an actor. I'm a stunt guy. I always put the Marine Corps first. I'm a Marine
Love
veteran
it.
first. But once 2020 happened, I kind of shifted a minute because Hollywood shut down and left me in a place where I realized everything I had been doing was reliant on my work in Hollywood, and I had no backup plan. So this year, I really focused on taking all my years of transforming people and celebrities, and just the years and years of experience with nutrition and exercise, to create my own program and really develop a business that I could work with non-celebrities. And so I have a 90-day program where I change people's lives in 90 days through health and fitness, specifically stemming from changing their mindset and understanding food differently, and training in a way that is very different but very effective.
Wow. What's a quick tip? I mean, whether it's related to fitness, nutrition, or just general life advice that you would give somebody today, right now, that they could take advantage of.
I would say your health is your wealth. So be mindful of what you're eating and putting into your body, because not only will it affect your physical health, but it also affects your mental health. And at the end of it all, if you're taking care of yourself properly, you're going to think more clearly. So when you have those goals, you're going to be able to have a better mindset to believe in yourself and achieving them. And no matter what anyone says, especially in this day and age, drown out the noise and do what feels right to you and what makes you happy.
Oh God, I can use that advice right now immediately, Aaron. Let me just tell you, wow, it's like you're speaking directly to me. It's interesting, and I love what you're saying about your health, because I agree with you. For me, I've been an athlete for my entire life. I continue to do everything that I get the chance to do, whether it's triathlons or CrossFit or whatever it is. I love to stay in shape and feel healthy, and I am conscious as well of what I put in my body. But I really kind of think sometimes I sit back and I look at our society here in America, especially, and it feels like, you look at the fact that we have birth rates that are declining, that means testosterone levels are declining. I don't know what to make of that, but I have to think, if people are eating like nothing but processed foods all day, they're not getting out and moving their bodies. Do you feel like we're headed in a frightening direction when it comes to kind of the overall health of our country right now? Because I got to tell you, I get a little nervous thinking like 100 years down the road, we're not going to be around, but somebody's going to have to deal with that.
Yeah, it does make me nervous, honestly, because as technology continues to advance, it seems like we get more comfortable and lazier and weaker mentally.
Yes.
And that's not the great recipe for success and to have a strong society. So I always say focus on single ingredient foods rather than trying to focus on convenience and opening something out of a wrapper, because the chances of you eating something out of a wrapper, I'm not saying you're eating rat poison, but it's like, you're just dying a slower death.
No, 100%. And look, I get it. Sometimes we're on an airplane all day, you're traveling, you're stuck in a situation where you have to, eat something that you otherwise wouldn't. But I just feel like, I don't know, with you're right, technology, screens. I have 2 kids. Do you have any kids, by the way? No.
I've got 2 daughters.
Oh, you do? How old are your daughters?
My oldest is 17. My youngest is 14.
Oh, so they're like right in the thick of it with this stuff. My kids are 3 and 5. And I already see just the little bits of every now and again where I let them, look at something on my phone, or they play a game on my phone if we're on an airplane or something. It is so addictive. It is so frightening to me as to how quick these kids are to turn to, can I have your phone? And I'm like, no, you can't have my phone anymore. Like, I'm done with this now. But it's really kind of crazy to think about, when we were growing up, for example, we didn't have all of this stuff. My dad would come home and be like, go outside and do something. I don't care what you do, just get out of the house. I don't feel like people are saying that to kids anymore, though.
No, and society has changed so much, because I remember the same thing. It's like you just had to be home when the lights came on, the street lights.
Yeah. Yes.
And
those were the days.
yeah, and it's like there was no communication to text someone to see if they're home, so you'd have to ride their bike over there. But yeah, I want the world to be a good place that my daughters can actually enjoy life in a way that's full of freedoms, and not have to worry so much about all these things today that we keep seeing, blasted around all the major news networks and things like that. Everything was so much simpler back then, and I miss those times when we weren't so attached to our screens, because it's taken away that human connection.
It really has. And I feel like people, there are a whole host of people out there who, like, they never even want to have a phone conversation. They'd rather just shoot a quick text, and there's no meeting people in person anymore. It's a little crazy. Look, technology allows you to be in Las Vegas and me to be in Florida, and for us to do an interview like this, which is very exciting and amazing, but there's also a downside to it. But I love the fact that what you're promoting out there is focus on your health, stay healthy, and look, you get one body, you get one shot at this. And so if you feel good while you're living this life, I mean, the rest of it is just gravy as far as I'm concerned, because people, if you got your health, that's more than half the battle there, as far as I'm concerned. Did you ever expect, Aaron, when you first got into fitness after joining the Marine Corps, did you ever expect all of this to come from it, to be immersed in the world of Hollywood, to meet celebrities, to, gain some level of fame from this, because you really obviously are great at what you do?
Never in my wildest dreams could I have imagined being where I am today. When I fell in love with fitness back in Okinawa, I had the mindset of wanting to be a pro bodybuilder. That was where my head was. Yeah, bodybuilding was, I'm a meathead at heart. But, at the end of the day, right now, I take all that love for fitness and I put it in a way that it's all about health and longevity, because it's so crucial right now, and people need it so much. So I'm very blessed to be able to be where I am now, to share that with people. And, when you can change someone's life in a way that they're thanking you because they were on their deathbed and you were able to pull them away, that kind of purpose right there is, it's more meaningful than anything I could ever get out of Hollywood.
Wow. Well, I'm sure, you probably think back sometimes to maybe your lowest point, maybe when you were, in your car in New Orleans and saying, like, what do I do? How is this ever going to work out? And I feel like if you're open to it and you're paying attention and you're willing to work for whatever it is, God shows you a path, and you took it, and it's incredible to see. And we love stories like this. I feel like everybody loves a story like this. Final question for you. Would you ever run for political office? Why or why not?
When it comes to politics, I have to say I can't stand politics, but
you're like, hell no.
I love this country so much that if it came down to there was a need to have me being in office in some capacity, that it was right for the country, and it was just in dire straits, I would do it without question, just because I've traveled the world. I've been everywhere, and every time I'm gone, I always look forward to coming home. And I've gained so much perspective in all these other countries where I understand things in a way that I wish more people here in the States could understand them, because when you have that type of perspective and you see the difference in cultures, you understand why America is so great. So yeah, I would. I don't want to. I'm never going to say that I am, but if it comes down to it, I would.
Aaron, we may need you. I'm just saying, we may need you. We're getting to a place where I don't know. And I mean, you could go under the name Aaron, or we could go with AA Run. Either way, however you want to do it, for just the billboards and the stickers and stuff. It could be catchy. I don't know. Well, again, look, thank you so much for your service to this country. We're truly grateful for anyone who puts their life on the line, whether it's in our military, whether it's our men and women in blue across America. We couldn't live in the freest, greatest country in the world without people like you. And honestly, I can say that I'm truly grateful, and I know so many Americans echo that same sentiment. And good luck. What's coming up for you? Do you have anything you can tell us about?
There's potential to be signed on to a big TV show that kicks off in spring, summertime.
Okay.
It's a Fox show, so I'm gonna just hope it works out because it'd be really cool. It's a great project. But in the meantime, I'm still connected with all my people in the industry. This, like I say, this year was kind of a pause just to focus on my business. But I think 2023 is going to be a year where people are going to hear about me a lot more.
Well, we love that. We're looking forward to 2023. I'm personally looking forward to 2024, perhaps for other reasons, but nonetheless, we're all looking forward, and we appreciate you so much. Thank you for joining us here on The Right View, and we're going to keep an eye out for the Fox show or whatever might come down the pipe for you. I know you're going to be successful, so best of luck with everything you do. And to our audience, as always, thank you for joining us right here on The Right View. We'll see you back here next time for more.